All right, today we're going to run through the underwriting. We're going to be using the 7-year pro forma financial calculator that's in the portal. Just download that. It may have a deal already plugged in, but we'll just go through line items to show you how you can add to it, plug in the numbers, and spit out the evaluation. So for you to do this, in the first tab on that, it's going to be the deal summary. This is where your basic information is going to be. But to be able to get to this part, what you're going to need is a profit and loss statement and a basic rent roll. You can do it on the fly with just numbers they'll give you, but the main things you need are going to be, actually, let me switch screens so you can see it. Share. Let's see here. Okay. So here's a rent roll. This is going to have, and some of them will be handwritten. Some of them will be like, here's a handwritten profit and loss statement, right? But this is what a typical rent roll. This is a mobile home park. Sometimes in apartments, you'll have a better breakdown on, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, the size, the square footage. These are all the tenants' names. The water bill, he bills back the utilities. He doesn't have them separate metered. Sometimes it'll be separate metered and give you an exact number, but this is just all the income. Okay, so this is very important. 32,000 is the rental collected that month. 2,600 he collected in utility bill back. I think his utility bill, we'll look at that as well, but I think he had, we'll look at that later on, but that's what he's collecting on a monthly basis. So here's his handwritten profit and loss statement. Again, you'll probably get these worse off, better. Some of the apartment owners, the larger properties obviously are a little more sophisticated with technology, and will have a cleaner profit and loss. This doesn't have a bunch of line items, so we can already assume that his total profit and NOI is not as high, right? That's why we do our own. So, all right, we'll pop back over, but just start looking at these because I won't be able to share both screens at one time. But if you look at these, the repairs and maintenance is always a good one to see. He does have a payroll, the trash, he's got his insurance, liability insurance, and taxes. So these are a lot of the big ones. Payroll, he's self-managing too, so he's basically paying a full-time maintenance guy, and then he's self-managing. So we should put in another maintenance. I don't see landscaping. I don't see, I didn't see on here the utilities. He put trash, but I don't see the actual utilities. So he's billing out. See, and this is what you'll see a lot. So he's collecting on it, but now he's not showing it on the profit and loss, right? So his income's going to be a lot more. I did ask him about that. He ended up selling it. He's like, oh, or he sent it over and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I must have not sent that. And I said, yeah, it wasn't, accounted for, and that's okay. But again, that's why we do this and understand and study what's missing, right? Landscaping, that could be a decent size one. All right, we're going to hop back over to the sheet here. So this is that deal, right? So it's a 80 unit park. It was developed, it was built, it's fairly new. So the infrastructure is pretty good. Purchase price $3 million. On his T12, it's showing a 10 cap. We already know, just again, the couple things we went over is not that healthy of a cap rate. You're going to put in your debt. Well, this, oh shoot, this is actually a 70-30 split. I used a different calculator, which is okay. You guys might be doing deals on your own. I'll do another one that has just, if you're writing this for another operator that's buying it. Oh, dang, I didn't mean to do that, but it's okay. This is still good because this shows for example, if you're doing a 70-30 split, if you're in this deal, this is your deal with other investors. That's what this is going to show a lot of, but it's okay. We're going to just go over the underwriting, and you guys can use either calculator. So we have The financial, this is the initial financing over in the middle column. It's the 85 LTV. That's pretty high. We did get a local bank that was able to do that. Purchase price again, 3 million. So we're financing 2.5. They gave us 2.25 or a 4.25 interest rate. It's amortized over 30 years and it's a 10-year term. All right. So in commercial, that's important to realize. The amortization, it's not like a home, like a single family home that you get a 30-year fixed rate and it's 30 years, the term and the amortization. These commercial loans are, you do bridge loans, a couple years, 5 years, 10 years is pretty typical. And they're not always on a 30-year am. They could be on a 20, could be on a 25. So that will really make the monthly payment fluctuate. So just pay attention to that. And what the banks look for too, another good thing when you're doing this, to see if it's even financeable, because you don't want to waste your time. If you're looking to get an assignment from a seller and they tell you some crazy price, if you go and you underwrite this with some pretty conservative financing terms, the bank, if it doesn't meet the bank's requirements, then that cuts out probably an 80% of the buyers, right? Because there's going to be only a handful of cash buyers. And if you can't get bank financing, who's going to buy the deal, right? Does that make sense? So DSCR is debt service coverage ratio, right? So that number, this deal is 1.91. The banks want a minimum of a 1.25. So that means, what that even means is the debt service is your payments, right? So if this ended up being $100,000 in debt payments a year, okay? So think about your mortgage, $100,000 a year in debt payments. If you break that down on a monthly basis that you'll be paying, that's $8,333. Okay, so if you have that in your mind, the bank wants to see the net operating income 1.25. So that means essentially it's 125% of the debt service. So that means your net operating income needs to cover the debt 100 plus another 25. So you're looking at 125,000 minimum that the bank wants to see to make it a deal. Okay, if that just went over your head, just rewind this. Let's do it again. Once you understand that, it is pretty simple. Then you can look at deals. Because again, here's a very simple example. If the bank note is 100,000 a year and the NOI from the seller's deal is 80,000, guess what? You're 20,000 short on the mortgage payment. It's not a deal. It's not going to finance, right? Does that make sense? Now, there's very few scenarios that, the pro forma, you infill, whatever, there's a plan behind it, but we're not going to get onto that. So anyway, I'll move along here. Once you plug these in, you're going to go to the pro forma tab, and here's where the yellow column, this is what I just showed you on the last handwritten sheet from the seller. So the yellow column is going to be what he gives you. So you're going to we'll start from the top, and here's the 80 units. These figures right here, you can manipulate these for the pro forma. Oh, this is a 10-year sheet. Okay. See, I didn't have the 7-year up. So this is actually a 10-year. So again, I'll do another one with the 7-year. It won't have the investor 70-30 split, but this will still give us a basic understanding of how to go through this, because it's the same calculator. It's just 7 years and it doesn't have the split at the bottom, and that's just down here. So it doesn't really matter. But these numbers, if you just understand the market, rental increases are historically 3 to 5% in markets that are growing 5, but 3%, that's what these numbers are up top. So every year it'll automatically increase for you, the pro forma. The expenses also do increase, right? Inflation. So just because the income just because the income goes up doesn't mean the expenses stay flat, right? Because then you're going to paint the wrong picture. Someone will pick up on that, and then you lose your credibility with sending them deals. vacancy, the bank's always going to do 5% no matter what. If you have 100% filled, if you have 100 units and it's 100 units filled, the bank, when they look at this, they're still going to put in a 5% vacancy rate, right? That's how they're going to underwrite the deal. So we want to do similar. 6 to 7 is always conservative. Bad debt, 3%, put 2%. Bad debt is income that has not been collected. Okay, so if you have 3 people that owe you $500, you have $1,500 worth of bad debt, and that can usually be a percentage, right, between 3%, 2%. And if you don't have that, some places don't. It's pretty stabilized, and you can eliminate that, but it's always good to show, especially in larger apartment complexes. You're going to have someone that's behind or currently getting evicted, a couple $100, couple months of bad debt. So that's what those are. But you're going to plug in the first line item is market rent, his trailing 12. So he being the seller said his gross collected rents. We did 2020. This was the first year. We're going to do 2 years, 2020, 2021. But he did $367,723 in gross collected rents for the year. Okay, then that $2,600 that I showed you that he collected in utility income, that's income as well, right? So his gross rents and collected, and now again, this is mobile home parks, but in apartments, you might be underwriting pet fees, or there might be other amenities that they're charging you for, and you can make another line item or just cram it in the other income line item. He didn't have any vacancy loss, concessions, bad debt, right? So this is standard that he just didn't have. So, or I'm sorry, standard for a seller, just did not say he has anything. So now his taxes, he had 5312. I did check these are accurate for his year, but they will be reassessed. And there's a tab on here too, just to hop really quick. There's a 10-year projection. If you plug in the actuals and you find your rate, these are a little high. I think I didn't reset the true figures, but find out the rate from your county, because every market's going to be different. And if you plug that in over here, and then you'll have the purchase price, this will give you your 10-year projection on taxes once you purchase it, right? So see, that's a big deal. 5,200, it goes to 14, then it ends up around 40,000. That's a big chunk, right? So that could even kill a deal. So make sure you do that, because that's probably one of the biggest line items that people don't even realize. They just think, oh, taxes, and then do the 3% increase like it's a rent, and then they're underwater, or it's just not the same deal. So insurance, this was accurate. I still got a bump throughout the other years. Management fee, he had 0, so I didn't put one, but going forward, we did a 5% of the gross rents here. For our year 1, what we would spend, utilities, 36,000. I ended up finding, excuse me, what his were. He did send that over. I can try to show those, but he gave me the 12 months, and that's what it equated to. So we did that as well. So his total fixed, these are fixed expenses, and then we're going to get to the controllable expenses. So his fixed expenses, these are things that usually won't change. I mean, management fee, that's arguable, right? You could maybe put that in controllable, but utilities are pretty fixed. Insurance, give or take, a few bucks, but taxes, these are fixed. So then we go to the controllable. He did not have much of anything. Okay, so this is where we plug in what we know, or we feel we will, or the investor coming in would operate at, right? Maybe it's an out-of-state guy. He's definitely going to have an on-site manager. He's going to have some sort of administrative fee, right? That could just be some office and admin paper for $100 a month. We put 1,600. He didn't have that. He doesn't market. He doesn't do anything. We do. Our investors do. So we put $100 budget in there a month as well, just to put something online to keep leads coming in. Repairs and maintenance were light, and him owning quite a few of the homes, we felt that it's going to be at least be $1,000, excuse me, a month. He didn't even have a landscaping. I'm sure he just mows the yard himself and does some stuff on his own. But we calculated the 7,800 to be pretty accurate throughout what that size of property would need for the year. These are all for the year too. Again, it does break it down in the column next to it per unit. Some apartment guys like to see that. We don't really dwell on that in the mobile home park land, but trash, he did give us that. We used that. We'll probably keep that. That looks good. Turns, apartment, they own their own homes. He didn't have any turns, so we don't really know how to gauge that yet. We do have a budget for that. The payroll, he had 31. Since we're using a 20,000 management fee, we're going to still have an $18,000 payroll and a 20,000 management fee. So it's going to be a combined 38,000. He was just paying a maintenance guy 31, and that was the only fee. So we split that up a little bit. We feel once the tenants own all their homes, we won't have the maintenance that would be there if we own the homes, right? So similar to that's why, just a quick little example, apartments, if you're just trying to do it by rule of thumb, you can expect a 50% expense ratio. That means $100,000 in rent, you're going to have $50,000 of expenses, right? Those expenses are going to be a total of everything we just went over, plus more, maybe sometimes less. In mobile home parks, typically, it sounds a lot better than it is. You own the dirt, right? Which, think about it. If you just own dirt, what expenses are there going to be? Well, the landscapings, this, that, et cetera, but you don't own the home. So you're not in there fixing toilets, walls, all that all the time, right? So compared to an apartment building being 50%, these mobile home parks typically are anywhere from the 30%, maybe 40. We usually underwrite them sometimes at 40. This we're right in line at the 30%, 33, 36. But he, being the seller, had his at 23. So we knew he was for sure missing some stuff. If you are self-managing, that might be accurate, right? That could be true. But 30, 32, up to 38, that's where we've seen it across a lot of parks and communities on average. So just keep that rule of thumb if you're trying to do things off the cuff just for your own, like, oh, is this a deal? It's apartment building again. Gross rents, 100,000, divide that by 2, 50 grand. Divide that number, the net, by the market cap rate. Whatever that is, there's your evaluation, right? So we'll do a whole nother training on evaluation, but I just want to get through these line items, because once you get this, you're going to see, here's now we're past the controllable expenses. Okay, you're going to have your total expense here. So here's the NOI, line 45, 306. So this on the T12, that's why a cap rate of 10.2, because if you divide 306 by 10.2, that's going to give you the $3 million evaluation. Okay, our expenses came in obviously a little more, so that the net is less, but it's still, if you divide, and do this on your calculator just so you can understand it, not hear it. If you take 287, just get your little phone calculator out and just do the net operating income and divide it by 3 million. Okay, you're going to get a 0.0957. Okay, so that's rounded up, it's 9.6. There's your cap rate. Now, if you didn't have the purchase price, and you said, well, hey, this market, it's an 8 cap, these deals are going for. So this is what you would do. You wouldn't know the price, but you would say, okay, 287, do this one again on your calculator. So 287, 260 divided by 0.08 is 3.59. Okay, so we could look at this and say, oh, wow, we have $500,000 potentially built in equity because we have it under contract at 3 million, right? So that's a good value add. Now, that's how you find out if you don't have the purchase price. So now again, the market could be a 10 cap, or if it's in a bad area, it could be higher than that, right? The nicer the area, the nicer the asset, the lower the cap rate, right? This isn't a an off market in Arkansas, but down in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, you're looking at 3.5 cap income. So if this was an A-class apartment building at 287,000 divided by a 4 cap, you're looking at almost $7 million, right? It's just different wherever you're at, right? And whatever your asset class is. So that's how you find evaluation NOI. So, and then everything below here, proceeds from the refi, unless it's your deal and you're raising money and have investors, this is all the other numbers that may not matter to you right now if you're just trying to learn how to underwrite. But this just shows different equity splits, the preferred return, how much are they going to be getting off the 8%. We'll have a whole nother training on that, but go through the tabs, put comps in there of the market. So, the rent roll you can plug in here. I hadn't done that yet, but I had it on the other sheet. If you have a rehab budget, that's on the 5th tab over. Plug in your rehab, your payroll. You can help. Again, if it's a bigger apartment complex, something you're going to have a manager, you're going to have leasing agents, you're going to have a couple maintenance men, maybe a junior tech. So you're going to have their salaries, right? So then bonuses, some might have workman's comp. So you can plug all those in, get your total to plug in on the pro forma. Again, the taxes that you saw, the debt schedule, closing costs, go through, what do you need to come up with closing between your broker's fees, any third parties, your borrower, are you escrowing any real estate taxes, title insurance, etc. So that was a quick overview. I may again do it again just on the 7. I will do it again on the 7-year, and I'll break it down maybe a little more, in detail. But that's just how to underwrite and get your basic evaluation and line items. And if you do have other line items, just click the tab. Whatever, if it's controllable, right click and insert, and you'll pop open whatever it is, and it could be. I don't know, whatever else you have, right? You come across something, maybe there's separate gas expenses, or something of that nature. So we'll go over another one, but hope that was helpful.